The anime begins in a city under attack by planes and a girl desperately running for shelter with her mother. Suddenly, the mother disappears in a fiery blaze, leaving the kid in tears. Just when you thought things couldn't get more heated, a flaming tornado whisks the girl away like she's auditioning for a fireworks show. Fast forward to present day Tokyo. Meet Satoru Mikami, a 37-year-old bachelor who's waited so long for love that even his microwave has given up on him. He's got a decent life, but there's one thing missing, a girlfriend. Not having one doesn't really bother him though. As Satoru strolls down the street, lost in thought about his loveless life, his buddy Temura pops up, eager to introduce Satoru to his new flame. Enter Miho, Temura's girlfriend. She's seen Satoru around before but never talked to him until now. Satoru, being the hilarious guy he is, decides to mess with Miho by claiming he knows all about her celebrity status due to some juicy rumors. Miho's face turns as red as a tomato on a hot summer's day, but don't worry, Temura reassures her that Satoru's just cracking jokes. As they head out for a meal at Satoru's favorite restaurant, they suddenly hear a commotion. A wild man wielding a dagger appears out of nowhere and charges at Temura. Satoru, in a daring act of bravery, shoves Temura aside and takes a dagger to the back. The attacker makes a run for it, leaving Satoru confused and in pain. Temura calls for an ambulance, and Satoru's thinking, great, I finally get some action, and it's a dagger in the back. While bleeding and pondering his life choices, Satoru reaches out to Temura with his blood-stained hand and delivers his last request: wipe the hard drive on his computer at home. Temura, who wanted to impress Satoru with Miho, is now in tears, and Satoru, in his final moments, advises Temura to take good care of her. He never imagined he'd die a virgin, but he's determined that if he's reborn, he'll be a real Casanova, making up for lost time. Satoru's life flashes before his eyes, and he thinks about how close he was to hitting that big 4-0 as a virgin. In his next life, he might even become a legendary sage. As Satoru closes his eyes and prepares to meet the great beyond, he gains consciousness once more, but things have taken a strange twist. Satoru awakens in a peculiar world as a slime. Yes, you read that right, a slime. He starts bouncing around, realizing that his slime body is pretty handy. He doesn't even need to eat or sleep, but something's up, he hasn't pooped yet. As he continues his slimy escapades, a mysterious voice informs him that all the stuff he's dissolving is stored in his unique stomach. He can analyze and acquire skills from the objects he ingests, and he even learns to make healing potions from the plants he dissolves. Handy, right? Satoru gets so excited that he gobbles up some fancy stones, but his slimy enthusiasm gets him into a lake. No worries, though, he absorbs the water and unlocks a new skill, water pressure propulsion. Now he's not just any slime, he's a high-speed, hydro-powered slime. As he zooms around, he smacks into an invisible wall, but no pain here, his regeneration skill has him covered. Then, he hears a mysterious voice again. This time, a weird creature offers him a deal, eyes in exchange for not being scared after seeing him and promising to visit later. Satoru agrees, and this strange dragon creature tells him how to unlock his secret skill of magic sense. Suddenly, Satoru sees everything, including the dragon, who introduces himself as Storm Dragon Veldora, one of only 4 true dragons in this world. Apparently, slimes with self-awareness are as rare as finding a unicorn in your backyard. Satoru spills the beans about his reincarnation tale to Veldora, who mentions that people usually arrive in this magical world as otherworlders, gaining special abilities in the process. As for Veldora, he was sealed because of a little mishap involving a town and a barbecue gone wrong. A hero with divine protection sealed him in this cave for 3 centuries. Satoru and Veldora become unlikely friends, and Satoru realizes that life has a funny way of surprising you, even if it involves becoming a slime in a magical world. Meanwhile, Temura faithfully wipes the data on Satoru's computer as instructed, unknowingly contributing to the weirdest adventure ever. Satoru's heart goes out to the poor dragon, stuck in that cave for a staggering 300 years. The dragon desperately asks Satoru if there's any way to get him out before his magic runs out. It turns out, the dragon is like a leaky balloon, slowly losing its magicules. No wonder the cave is chock full of magical herbs and ores, it's like a mystical Costco in there. Satoru tries his predator skill to absorb the imprisonment spell, but alas, no luck. The voice in Satoru's head suggests that if he analyzes the unlimited imprisonment from both inside and out, he might crack the code. The catch? The dragon's skills are locked up tighter than a bank vault. But Satoru has an idea. What if the dragon just feeds him the data? It would take some time, but Satoru figures he might as well multitask while in this magical world. Plus, he's itching to find other people from his world. So, he proposes to the dragon, "How about you hop in my stomach, and together we'll unlock this prison like a dynamic duo." The dragon finds this proposal absolutely hilarious and agrees. Satoru's puzzled by the dragon's hearty laughter, but hey, teamwork makes the dream work. Before the dragon becomes one with Satoru's digestive system, they decide to give each other names. Satoru christens the dragon Tempest, and the dragon dubs Satoru Rimuru. These names aren't just for show, they're engraved on their souls. With the formalities out of the way, Rimuru swallows both the imprisonment spell and Tempest. The cave where Veldora had been trapped is located in the Great Forest of Jura, a region with several neighboring countries. In one of these countries, the Kingdom of Belmond, Minister Baron Vriard has some pressing questions. He consults Guildmaster Fuse about the mysterious disappearance of Veldora, the Storm Dragon. Fuse knows about the dragon and promises to investigate personally, making sure to keep an eye on the Great Forest of Jura and the other kingdoms. Little does Rimuru know, his actions are setting off a chain reaction of chaos in the surrounding nations. Meanwhile, Rimuru explores the cave for an exit, spending days munching on herbs and ores and gaining new skills left and right. He now has water manipulation skills, which he combines with his water pressure propulsion and water movement abilities to become a bona fide waterbender. Rimuru also encounters a black serpent and gains a poisonous breath skill, making his breath fresh in more ways than one. He even runs into an Armorosaurus, defeats it, and acquires body armor. It's like he's collecting skills like trading cards. As weeks pass in his cave adventures, Rimuru stumbles upon a wooden door. It magically opens, revealing 3 adventurers on the other side. Rimuru eavesdrops on their conversation thanks to his nifty magic sense, and he realizes these are the first humans he's seen in this world. One of the adventurers uses a stealth art to make everyone invisible, leaving Rimuru flabbergasted. Emerging from the cave, the adventurers sense something amiss but shrug it off. Rimuru realizes he has a lot of stories to concoct for Veldora when they reunite, thinking about all the bizarre encounters he's had so far. Just as he ponders Veldora's reaction to his tales, a group of tiny goblins appears before him, armed to the teeth. The goblins are trembling in fear, and one of them tentatively calls Rimuru a strong one. Rimuru decides to assert his dominance and introduces himself with a booming voice, inadvertently scaring the goblins to their knees. They beg him to stop, and Rimuru, feeling a bit like a rock star, listens to their tale. The goblins sensed a powerful monster and ventured into the forest to investigate. With Rimuru's immense power, they request his assistance. Rimuru obliges and is escorted to the goblin village, where he meets the elder. As it turns out, the goblin's god had disappeared a month ago, and that god is none other than Veldora. Without Veldora's protection, the goblins have been under attack by other monsters, and they implore Rimuru for help. Rimuru maintains his modesty, even though his power is radiating like a neon sign. Eventually, he agrees to help the goblins, who have faced tragedy with the loss of 100 direwolves and the elder's son. In exchange for his protection, the goblins pledge their loyalty to him. As they discuss their situation, the direwolves begin to howl, sending shivers down the goblins' spines. Rimuru steps up as their newfound hope, and just like that, he becomes the goblin leader. After Rimuru swallowed Veldora, they embarked on the arduous journey of analyzing the seal together, with the ultimate goal of setting Veldora free. But Rimuru's adventures didn't stop there. As he emerged from the cave, he encountered a group of goblins in dire need of assistance. These goblins were beaten down and scrawny, clearly no match for the direwolves threatening their village. Rimuru, being the compassionate slime he is, tried to lift the spirits of these downtrodden goblins. He encouraged them with words of hope and unity. However, before he could fully motivate them, he decided to visit the wounded goblins in one of the huts. What he saw was a goblin with deep wounds, in dire need of medical attention. Rimuru, not one to stand by idly, absorbed one of the wounded goblins and promptly threw it away, completely healed. The goblin looked puzzled for a moment, then realized it felt better than ever. Rimuru repeated this miraculous act for all the wounded goblins, tossing potions from his body like they were party favors. The goblins were now not only healed but also astounded. Their elder couldn't believe his eyes as he witnessed Rimuru's extraordinary healing abilities. He immediately ordered the goblins to start building a fence and fortifying their village against the impending direwolf attack. Speaking of the direwolves, they weren't about to let the goblins off easy. Led by their pack leader, they launched an attack on the village, howling their intentions. When they reached the village, they were met with a flimsy-looking fence. The pack leader, brimming with arrogance, ordered his pack to trample the fence and shed goblin blood. As the wolves charged, many of them met their doom thanks to a cleverly placed steel thread trap set up by Rimuru. The pack leader, however, wasn't deterred. He charged at Rimuru, furious at the mere sight of a slime giving orders. But Rimuru had a few tricks up his metaphorical sleeve. The leader found himself trapped by sticky threads and promptly lost his head to Rimuru's water blade. Rimuru, now a wolf thanks to his mimic ability, tried to warn the pack to submit or face dire consequences. Unfortunately, the pack couldn't understand him, so Rimuru absorbed the deceased leader, gaining his skills, including the ability to communicate through thoughts, heightened senses of smell, and a menacing aura. Transformed into a wolf, Rimuru decided to assert his newfound authority. The rest of the pack wisely yielded to Rimuru's leadership. The battle was over, but now Rimuru had to deal with a goblin and wolf alliance. He paired them up and ordered them to work together, ensuring peace in his budding community. Naming was Rimuru's secret weapon. By giving names to just a few, he inadvertently raised the rank of all monsters, causing them to evolve. The goblins and wolves weren't scrawny anymore, they were a force to be reckoned with. Even the elder, Rigurd, had transformed into a muscle-bound powerhouse. Rimuru, realizing the potential of naming, declared Rigurd as the Goblin Lord and laid down some laws for the community to follow. But there were still problems to solve. Houses and clothes were on the top of the list. Rigurd suggested seeking the help of dwarves, who were renowned for their craftsmanship. With a new mission in mind, Rimuru set off on a journey towards the kingdom of dwarves, leaving behind a community of goblins and wolves ready to take on the world. Following the Emiled River north, Rimuru, accompanied by Ranga, a few other wolves, and goblins, embarked on their journey towards Dworgen, the kingdom of dwarves. Alongside them were Rigger, two other goblins, and Gopta, their trusty guide who had visited Dworgen before. As they settled in their camp one evening, Rigger revealed that he had been named by a passing demon named Lord Gelmud, an officer in the Demon Lord's army. This revelation piqued Rimuru's interest in the complex world of demon lords and heroes, but he had one clear goal: to avoid getting tangled up with either of them. Rimuru turned to Ranga and asked if he held any grudge for Rimuru's role in his father's demise. However, Ranga's loyalty was unwavering, and he declared his gratitude to Rimuru alone. Their destination was the armed nation of Dworgen, a city beautifully constructed within a modified natural cave system. It was home to various races, including dwarves, humans, and even elves. The dwarf king, Gazel Dwargo, was renowned as the hero king. As Gobda provided more information about Dwargo, Rimuru couldn't help but imagine the beauty of elves. Dwargo was a neutral trade center, and its military might was unparalleled. Fighting within the kingdom was strictly prohibited, as the Dwargo army had been undefeated for 1,000 years. Anyone who provoked them was deemed a dumb. After a 3-day journey, they finally reached Dworgen, thanks to Ranga and his fellow wolves. Rimuru, still daydreaming about beautiful elves, decided to take Gopta with him while instructing the others to remain outside to avoid drawing attention. However, even at the entrance gate, a long line awaited them. As they stood in line, two troublemakers set their sights on Gopta, aiming to capture Rimuru due to his rarity as a talking slime. Rimuru ordered Gopta to close his eyes and ears and stepped forward to handle the thugs. Transforming into a tempest wolf, Rimuru attempted to scare them off. But the thugs weren't so easily dissuaded and called for backup. They began attacking Rimuru, whose slimy body proved impervious to their blows. In a final attempt, Rimuru unleashed his menace attack, causing chaos and fear. 16 people fled, 68 were left bewildered, 92 fainted, and 34 had less control over their bladders. Amidst the chaos, Rimuru and Gobta were captured by the head of security, Kaido. Rimuru apologized for the trouble they caused, but before Kaido could release them, his subordinate informed him of an Aramosarasu in the mine, which posed a significant threat to the miners. The miners were gravely injured, and Kaido lacked the necessary magic potion to heal them. Rimuru offered Kaido his own healing potion, which saved the miners' lives. Grateful for Rimuru's assistance, Kaido released them, treated them to a meal, and shared his reason for being in Dworgen. The next day, accompanied by Kaido, Rimuru ventured into the city. Kaido introduced him to skilled blacksmiths, including his own brother, Kaijin Blacksmith. 3 miners who had been saved by Rimuru's healing potion also joined them, and they shared their tale of Rimuru's heroics with Kaijin. Kaijin apologized for not being able to help more, as he was currently swamped with crafting 20 longswords for Minister Vesta. These swords needed to be delivered by the end of the week, and he had only managed to complete one due to a shortage of materials. Kaijin had initially declined the order but was manipulated into accepting it through gaslighting. Kaijin was also short on magic ore, which was what the miners had been attempting to extract before the trouble occurred. If he failed to deliver the swords, his blacksmithing license would be revoked. Rimuru came to the rescue, throwing up the much-needed magic ore, impressing Kaijin with its purity. In gratitude for Rimuru's help with mending the goblins' clothing and homes, Kaijin got to work on his sword crafting. Rimuru requested one of the completed swords, absorbed it, and asked the sage voice to create duplicates. Moments later, Rimuru astonished everyone by producing 20 identical longswords. Kaijin and the others decided to throw a party for Rimuru with the butterflies of the night. Initially hesitant, Rimuru couldn't resist the allure when he heard the word elves. Entering the pub, he was warmly welcomed by a group of beautiful elves, who immediately began hugging him, much to Rimuru's delight. The party had officially begun. Continuing with the story, we find Rimuru enjoying a pleasant time at the bar, resting comfortably in the lap of an elf under the shade of her oppai, while Gobter remains blissfully unaware, sound asleep in jail. One of the elves starts making gestures, which Rimuru misinterprets as some sort of erotic signals. He's momentarily perplexed, but when he notices a glass globe, it dawns on him that she's attempting to perform fortune-telling. The elf offers to reveal Rimuru's life partner, and although Rimuru doesn't have any specific inquiries in mind, he agrees to the playful suggestion. The elf begins to cast the spell, first jokingly and then with a more serious intent. She gazes into the glass globe and envisions a pretty girl among other details. As they discuss the vision, Minister Vesta unexpectedly appears, mocking Kaijin for wasting time with such frivolous activities. Rimuru starts pondering whether Vesta gave Kaijin an impossible task on purpose and wonders about the relationship between the two. Vesta redirects his attention toward Rimuru, insulting him as a lowly monster and berating Kaijin for bringing it into a high-class establishment. The elf bartender tries to calm Vesta down with a drink, but Vesta escalates things by pouring a jug of wine onto Rimuru, who had been resting comfortably in the elf's lap. Rimuru manages to keep his temper in check, considering Vesta's position as minister. However, Kaijin steps in, delivering a surprise punch to Vesta, who didn't see it coming. Rimuru cheers Kaijin on, suggesting he goes for the face instead of the body. Kaijin lands another punch, sending Vesta sprawling to the floor. Rimuru inquires if hitting the minister would cause problems, but Kaijin responds by asking Rimuru if he'd accept him as his artisan. Rimuru happily agrees. Kaido intervenes and takes Rimuru and Kaijin into custody until their trial. Kaijin apologizes to everyone for dragging them into his troubles. Rimuru questions Kaijin about Vesta's grudge against him, learning that Kaijin used to serve Gazel Dwargo as the captain of one of the 7 orders of royal knights, while Vesta was his subordinate. Vesta, being from a noble family, had disdain for Kaijin's peasant origins and unjustly placed blame on him for a major project failure with false testimonies. Kaijin eventually resigned and became a blacksmith, and Vesta took every opportunity to ruin his life. Kaijin and his subordinates agree to become artisans under Rimuru. The next day, the trial begins with King Gazel Dwargo presiding. The king makes a grand entrance, exuding a strong presence that leaves Rimuru genuinely impressed. The trial commences with the lawyer blaming Kaijin and his group. After hearing the arguments, the trial concludes with Kaijin and his subordinates sentenced to a decade of hard labor in the mines. When offered the chance to return as captain of the Night Order, Kaijin refuses, having already pledged his loyalty to a new master. This decision angers the king, who orders Kaijin to leave his sight and punishes the gang with exile. The king appears somewhat saddened by the outcome. After the court session ends, the king instructs Vesta to speak the truth, revealing that he had known all along about Vesta's lies. Despite Vesta's intentions to be useful, the king is also upset with him for severing their connection with Rimuru, who had provided them with a 100% effective healing potion, an impossibility for the dwarves to replicate. The king leaves the court while Vesta breaks down in tears, reflecting on the first time he saw Gazel Dwargo. Vesta pleads for forgiveness from the king, but the king commands him never to show his face again. Kaido bids farewell to Kaijin and his group before they go into exile. Despite the chaos, Rimuru successfully achieves his initial goal of bringing skilled artisans to the Goblin Village. As the story unfolds, Dwargo orders a spy to keep an eye on the slime, recognizing that Rimuru is the true monster, much like the storm dragon Veldora. In the Free Union Guild of the Blue Moon Kingdom, Fuse reviews reports that indicate no signs of the Eastern Empire attempting to cross the Great Forest of Jura. These reports are presented by Cavil, Iren, and Gaido, adventurers whom Rimuru encountered when leaving the cave. Fuse orders them to investigate the forest after they return from their 3-day vacation. He knows that monsters will likely be unusually active following Veldora's disappearance. As they set out, the adventurers express frustration at their guild master for assigning them challenging tasks. Suddenly, a masked warrior woman named Shizu appears and inquires if they were discussing the Jura forest. She requests to accompany them on their investigation, and Iren agrees. Shizu introduces herself to the group, and Rimuru's presence is revealed. Rimuru transforms into a Tempest Wolf to train Ranga, his loyal companion. A few weeks have passed since Rimuru's return to the goblin village with the dwarves. The goblins watch Kaijin, the skilled blacksmith, closely as he works. With the dwarves' help, they aim to improve and fortify the goblin village to ensure peace and prosperity. Rimuru has also named all 500 of the new goblins who sought shelter in the village after hearing about Rimuru's heroics against the wolves. Rigurd, promoted from Goblin Lord to Goblin King, reports to Rimuru about some humans discovered in the forest. These humans are from a nation seeking to expand its dominion. The adventurers, meanwhile, are fleeing from a giant ant that Cavil inadvertently provoked. Shizu intervenes, demonstrating her powerful fire sword abilities to defeat the ants. Afterward, a bolt of black lightning reduces the last ant to dust, revealing Rimuru's presence. Rimuru returns Shizu's mask, recognizing her as the same girl shown to him by the elf as his potential partner. Rimuru leads the adventurers to the goblin village, where they express gratitude for saving them from monsters and providing food. Cavil introduces their group, and Shizu discusses their plans to investigate Veldora's disappearance. They seek Rimuru's permission to conduct their investigation and are offered a night's stay in the goblin village. In the evening, Rimuru finds Shizu alone, watching the sunset. He asks if she is also from Japan, and she confirms. Rimuru then opens up and shares his entire story with Shizu. She holds Rimuru in her arms, which makes him feel shy and blush. During this moment, Rimuru uses thought communication to show Shizu his memories, and she enjoys the view. However, Shizu suddenly feels weak and falls to her knees. Kaijin appears, seeking advice about the location of a new house, as Shizu recalls the time when she was summoned during World War II, and her body was offered to the fire demon Ifrit. As Shizu struggled with the memories of her past, she recalled the time when she was summoned by Demon Lord Leon. During their encounter, the great sorcerer Koenig had also appeared to challenge Lord Leon. Leon controlled Shizu and used her powers to reduce Koenig to ashes. However, Shizu had made a friend during her time as a summoning, a girl of the same age. The girl had found a dog and brought it into the castle, where animals were forbidden. The dog barked at Leon, causing Shizu's body to react uncontrollably, and she inadvertently burned the dog and the girl. This incident left Shizu confused and devastated, as she cried over taking someone's life. Shizu's nightmares were haunting her, and she woke up with her body trembling, struggling to control her powers. She decided to leave the goblin village, explaining to Rimuru that she wanted to find the man who had summoned her. The adventurers also chose to depart. However, as Shizu was leaving the village, her body suddenly transformed into her flame form. Cavil recognized her as Shizu Izawa, the conqueror of flames, and Iren had heard of her as a hero from the guild 50 years ago. Rimuru ordered Rigurd to evacuate the village and revealed that he had a plan. The fire spirit of Ifrit was released, and Ifrit began attacking the village, summoning little demons that set everything ablaze. Cavil decided to stay and fight alongside Rimuru. As Rimuru attempted to reason with Ifrit, Ifrit launched an attack at him. Rimuru dodged and retaliated with his water blade, but it evaporated upon contact with Ifrit. The demons attempted to attack Rimuru, but Iren used her magic to distract them. Rimuru summoned Ranga and instructed him to focus on evading attacks while he handled the demons. Rimuru needed to deal with the demons first before confronting Ifrit. He asked the sage voice if he could expel all the water in his belly at once. The voice confirmed that it was possible, but warned that it would cause a steam explosion when the water came into contact with a salamander, potentially causing widespread destruction. Rimuru observed that Iren's magic attacks were effective against the salamanders. He ordered her to continue her assault, and he analyzed her attacks to devise a strategy. Rimuru then used his ice shotgun to attack the salamanders. The remaining salamander resorted to self-destruction in a desperate attempt to harm the adventurers. Rimuru ordered Ranga to evacuate the adventurers to safety while he confronted Ifrit. Rimuru challenged Ifrit, who responded by summoning identical images of himself. Rimuru quickly dispatched the duplicates using his ice shotgun. Suddenly, a magic circle appeared beneath Rimuru, and Ifrit launched a powerful attack called Flare Circle. Although Rimuru appeared to have been consumed by the flames, he felt no pain or burning because his unique abilities nullified fire damage. Everything was going according to Rimuru's plan. Ifrit, thinking that Rimuru had been defeated, began to retreat. However, as he stepped back, Rimuru ensnared him in steel threads. Rimuru revealed to Ifrit that he had underestimated him, but not as much as Ifrit had underestimated Rimuru. With that, Rimuru absorbed Ifrit using his predator skill, and Ifrit found himself within Rimuru's belly, where he encountered Veldora. Veldora warned Ifrit not to engage in battle with Rimuru due to their sworn friendship, as Ifrit realized that he was no match for Rimuru. Shizu expressed her gratitude to Rimuru for helping her cope with the guilt and pain she had carried for so long, especially after unintentionally causing the death of her friend. She recounted her journey and explained how she had been possessed by Ifrit after her summoning, serving as the demon lord's closest aide until the hero confronted her. During a battle between the hero and the demon lord, Shizu found herself abandoned by her master, who fled his castle, leaving her behind as the rear guard. The hero defeated Shizu and took her in, asking about her loyalty to the demon lord. Shizu confessed her past and cried in the hero's arms. In response, the hero provided Shizu with a mask that boosted her magic resistance and suppressed the influence of Ifrit within her. She accompanied the hero on various adventures, using her abilities to help people and earning her title as the Conqueror of Flames. However, the hero eventually disappeared, leaving Shizu behind. She continued her journey, but as she aged, it became increasingly challenging for her to control Ifrit. She eventually retired and became a schoolteacher in the kingdom of Ingracia, teaching children from other worlds. Despite some of her students leaving to pursue their own paths, one of them became the grandmaster responsible for establishing guilds in various countries. As time passed, Shizu found it more difficult to restrain Ifrit's power, leading her to embark on a journey to find the man who had originally summoned her. Shizu asked Rimuru for a favor before her passing, to absorb her into his being so she could find peace away from this world. Her final wish was for Rimuru to locate the demon lord and persuade him to return the children who had been summoned to this world and acknowledge Shizu's existence. Rimuru agreed to fulfill Shizu's last wish, and she was peacefully absorbed into him. The adventurers, Cavil, Iren, and Gaido, entered the room to find that Rimuru had completely transformed into a human, capable of mimicking Shizu's appearance. Rimuru apologized for not consulting with them earlier but explained that it was the only way to provide a proper burial for Shizu. Iren expressed her desire to bid a final farewell to Shizu, and after they paid their respects, the adventurers left the village, thanking Rimuru for everything. They later encountered Kaijin and the three dwarf brothers, who were already famous worldwide. After exchanging greetings, the adventurers departed, leaving behind the girl who had once lost everything to flames but had gained the power of fire during her travels, ultimately succumbing to its consuming nature. Rimuru created a grave for Shizu, but he knew that before he could seek vengeance against the demon Leon Cromwell, who had made Shizu cry, he needed to gather more information. As the story unfolded, Rimuru reflected on his extraordinary journey from an ordinary life, getting reincarnated as a slime, befriending a storm dragon, and forming a deep connection with a human woman named Shizu. Meanwhile, in a barren land, an orc named Geld fell unconscious due to hunger and thirst. An elf named Jelmut approached Geld and offered him food and a new name, designating him as the one who would take control of the great forest of Jura and become the orc disaster. The development of the goblin village was progressing well. With the help of Kaijin and the dwarves, they had manufactured clothes and tools for building more houses. Additionally, the goblin lords under Rigurd had been working on establishing a governance system for the village. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. However, Rimuru felt there was something important he needed to do. He entered a house when no one was watching and repaired Shizu's broken mask, deciding to keep it as a memento of her. Rimuru then transformed into Shizu to test the hearing, vision, and speaking capabilities of his human form. He also inquired if he could utilize Ifrit's skills. The Great Sage confirmed that all of Ifrit's skills had been analyzed. Rimuru used his body double technique to create a copy of himself and began analyzing it. During this self-discovery, Rimuru realized that he had no gender in his human form, just as he had none as a slime. He also discovered that he could control the age of his summoned form. While walking around the village, Rimuru suddenly realized that he could now taste food and decided to join the goblins for a feast prepared by Rigurd. During this time, he noticed Rigurd and a group of goblins preparing to hunt for a great bull deer, which Rimuru approved of. However, Ranga interrupted with a thought communication, informing Rimuru that they were being attacked by some orcs. Rimuru rushed to the scene to find Gobda injured. He healed Gobda with a magic potion, and Ranga was engaged in a battle with two orcs. Rigurd was fighting an orc lady who had put some goblins to sleep with her magic. Rimuru called back Ranga and Rigurd to assess the situation. The orcs were unlike any Rimuru had encountered in video games. They wore armor and wielded katanas, and there were 6 of them. Rimuru attempted to reason with them, but the orcs were enraged due to the earlier pig attack and refused to listen. They also realized that Rimuru was concealing his true identity. With no other option, Rimuru decided to fight the orcs. He instructed Ranga to take care of the pink-haired orc lady who had used magic to put the goblins to sleep. Rimuru engaged the other 5 orcs in battle, using various skills and tactics to incapacitate them. During the battle, Rimuru's arm was severed, but he calmly reattached it, shocking the orcs. When he finally unmasked himself, revealing the intimidating black flames, the orcs grew worried. Rimuru used this display of power to establish his dominance. As Rimuru attempted to explain the situation, the old orc, who had been observing, cut off Rimuru's arm to test his regeneration abilities. The orc prince, however, decided to continue the fight, driven by his pride as the next leader of the ogre clan. Rimuru showed off his strength, causing the princess ogre to intervene and persuade the prince to cease the fight. The princess ogre believed that Rimuru was not the evil magician who had attacked the ogre clan with an army of pigs, slaying many ogres. Rimuru revealed his true form and provided the mask he had repaired as evidence. The prince ogre apologized for misunderstanding Rimuru and the goblins, and Rimuru invited them to share their story. As Rimuru asked for their names, the prince ogre explained that ogres didn't typically have names. They all headed back to the goblin village, where ogres and goblins reconciled and began to learn more about each other. As the goblins served the feast they had prepared, they were concerned about whether Rimuru would enjoy the food. For Rimuru, this was the first time he had tasted food in a long while, as he had grown used to being tasteless as a slime. Fortunately, Rimuru found the food to his liking, much to the relief of the goblin's cook. The ogres were also partaking in the feast, enjoying the meal alongside their new allies. Kaijin was baffled when the princess informed him that they had been attacked by orcs, as ogres were vastly stronger than orcs, and such an attack seemed unthinkable. The orcs had attacked their village out of nowhere, and they had come well armed and armored. There was a masked magician among them, which indicated that the orcs might be aligned with one of the demon lords. The prince ogre explained that only 3 of his 6 brothers had managed to escape the orc attack. Rimuru joined the conversation and asked the prince about their plans, whether they intended to rebuild their village or relocate it to a safer area. The prince's decision would determine the fate of his comrades. After some contemplation, the prince decided that they would seek revenge against the orcs once they were strong enough. Rimuru offered his help, proposing to make the ogres his subordinates, providing them with food, shelter, and clothing in exchange for their cooperation. The goblin village wasn't entirely safe either, which is why increasing their numbers with strong allies would benefit them. Rimuru assured the ogres that he would fight alongside them and never abandon them. The prince needed some time to consider the offer and went off alone to think. Eventually, the prince accepted Rimuru's proposal, but he decided to form a contract that would last only until the orc leader was defeated. After that, they could do as they pleased. Rimuru felt sympathy for the prince, who had to make difficult decisions as a leader. Rimuru transformed into his human form and began naming the ogres. However, he fainted before he could finish naming them. When he woke up, he found himself in the lap of the lady ogre under the shade of her ample bosom. To Rimuru's surprise, the ogres had evolved into a new race called Kijin. The prince introduced himself as Rimuru. The great sage explained that Kijin were an uncommon race born from ogres. Rimuru continued to name the ogres, giving them the names Shuna, Shen, Hakiru, Sawe, and Kurob. The orc army, meanwhile, was on the move in the forest. In the middle of the Jura forest lay Lake Sis, surrounded by vast marshlands. This area was controlled by the lizardmen. The lizardmen reported the sighting of an orc army of approximately 200,000 to their king. This was twice the size of the lizardmen's army, causing concern among the king and his advisor. The advisor realized that only one entity could control such a massive orc army, the legendary Orc Lord, a unique monster that could even devour the fear and terror of its own allies. The lizardmen's chances of victory were low, so the king decided to call for backup. He summoned his son, Gabiru, who was irritated that his father had not called him by his name, which was given to him by Demon Lord Gelmud. Hakiru, one of Rimuru's new ogre subordinates, was teaching goblin children swordsmanship. Rimuru shared the legend of the Orc Lord with Rimuru and mentioned that shortly before the orc attack, a suspicious magician had visited their village, wanting to name the ogres. However, Rimuru had turned him down, and the magician, who was revealed to be Demon Lord Gelmud, had cursed him as he left. Sawe informed Rimuru that he had spotted some lizard men, which was unusual. Gabiru was on his way to fulfill his father's order to seek an alliance with the goblin village, although he was annoyed that his father sought help from others against mere orcs. With the addition of Rimuru and his ogre comrades to the goblin village, life was becoming more lively and bustling. Shuna, one of the ogres, was busy weaving skill cloths made from hellsmoth, a sturdy cloth rich in magicules that provided excellent protection. Rimuru entered the room where Shuna and the dwarves were working, and she rushed over to hug him, much to the chagrin of Shin, who was carrying Rimuru. The weaving loom that Kaijin had made was easy to use, and Shin declared herself as Rimuru's secretary, a role that Rimuru accepted with amusement. Both Shuna and Shin seemed jealous of each other and insisted on taking care of Rimuru. In the male ogre room, Rimuru and the others were making themselves at home. Shin offered to cook for Rimuru, which made Rimuru nervous since he knew that Shin was a terrible cook. When Rimuru tasted her cooking, he quickly realized why Rimuru was sweating with anxiety. Gobda also took a bite and promptly fainted. Rimuru decided that she needed Benimaru's approval for her cooking. Meanwhile, Gabiru, the lizardman prince, continued his efforts to gather the cooperation of various goblin groups. They had managed to gather nearly 7,000 goblins so far. One of his subordinates informed Gabiru about another village where goblins had tamed direwolves, and their leader was said to be a slime. Gabiru decided to head towards this village to seek their alliance. Rimuru spent some time watching Korub and Kaijin discuss technical matters, while Rigger reported the arrival of a lizardman envoy. Rimuru, along with Benimaru and other ogres, went to meet them. The lizardman envoy arrived with a dramatic entrance orchestrated by Gabiru. Gabiru introduced himself with an air of arrogance, calling everyone else weaklings. Rimuru had to consider the alliance carefully because Gabiru came across as rather foolish. Rimuru recalled a famous quotation by Napoleon, which stated that one should fear not a competent enemy, but an incompetent ally. Gabiru continued to boast about his strength, and Shin grew angry. She squeezed Rimuru, and he reminded her to take Benimaru's approval when cooking. Gabiru then laughed at Rimuru, claiming the credit for taming the direwolves. Rimuru summoned Ranga and told Gabiru that Ranga would speak for himself. However, Gabiru continued to disrespect Rimuru and challenged him to a fight. The other lizardmen began chanting Gabiru's name. Ranga was furious at a mere lizardman daring to insult his master. Suddenly, Gobda appeared out of nowhere, shocking Rimuru, who had believed Gobda to be unconscious after eating Shin's cooking. Ranga took Gobda and asked Gabiru to defeat him. If Gabiru won, Ranga would consider Gabiru's offer to become his subordinate. Rimuru motivated Gobda, promising to order Kaijin to forge a special weapon just for him if he won. On the other hand, if Gobda lost, he would have to eat food cooked by Shin. Hearing these stakes, Gobda suddenly turned powerful, striking Gabiru with a powerful kick to the back of his head. The lizardmen were in complete shock. Even Rimuru was astounded by Gobda's abilities. Gobda defeated Gabiru with a single blow, and the ogres and Ranga praised him. Rimuru told the lizardmen that he would consider their offer for an alliance, but emphasized that they would not serve the lizardmen under any circumstances. He also requested that they take the unconscious Gabiru back to their village for the time being. As the lizardmen departed with Gabiru, Rimuru and his companions contemplated their next steps. Meanwhile, the orc army was advancing toward the lizardmen's territory. Xiaowei had spotted the approaching army and reported it to Rimuru. Kaijin and others speculated that someone might be controlling the orcs, as orcs were not known for their intelligence. Rimuru wondered if the demon lord Jelmud might be behind the orc alliance, but it was just a possibility. Rimuru and his companions also planned to meet with one of the body doubles who had come into contact with a dryad and requested an audience. Dryads were tree spirits, and it had been several decades since the last time one had appeared. Rimuru ordered the dryad to be brought before him, and she materialized from a tree, introducing herself as Trainee. Trainee had come with a request. She wanted Rimuru to defeat the orc lord. As the conference with Trainee, the dryad, continued, Benimaru questioned her true motive for seeking their help. Trainee explained that she might have approached the ogres if their clan had survived, but ultimately chose to ask the goblins because of their connection to Rimuru. She acknowledged Rimuru's immense power and considered him a valuable ally. Trainee confirmed the existence of the Orc Lord, revealing that dryads had knowledge of the events within the forest. She mentioned that the orcs were driven by the Orc Lord's unique skill called Starved, which compelled them to devour everything in their path, even their own dead comrades. This insatiable hunger for power led them to consume their fallen comrades, acquiring their skills in the process. Trainee emphasized that the Orc Lord's desire for power was insatiable, and his army would continue to rampage unchecked. Rimuru accepted Trainee's request after consulting with the Great Sage. They discussed forming an alliance with the Lizardmen to combat the orc threat. Xiaowei volunteered to take the message from Rimuru to the Lizardman chieftain. Meanwhile, Gabiru, who had been unconscious, awoke and started to believe that Gobta was the true leader of the goblin village. To his surprise, a masked magician named Laplace appeared before him. Laplace introduced himself as a servant of Demon Lord Jelmud and delivered a warning to Gabiru. Jelmud intended to groom Gabiru as the next chieftain of the Lizardmen. Gabiru left for the marshlands, leaving Laplace behind. The orc army continued its advance toward the marshlands, posing a grave threat. Xiaowei reached the Lizardman chieftain and delivered Rimuru's message, explaining that Rimuru Tempest had received a personal request from the dryads to defeat the approaching orc army. The Lizardman chieftain, who had never heard of Rimuru, was shocked to learn that the request came directly from a dryad. Xiaowei also informed them that the orc army was led by the formidable orc lord. The lizardmen had no choice but to accept the alliance. However, one of the lizardmen disrespected Rimuru, prompting Xiaowei to use his steel threads to admonish him, nearly beheading the lizardman. The chieftain apologized for the behavior of his advisor. The chieftain had one condition: he wanted to meet Rimuru in person. Saoi agreed to make the necessary preparations within 7 days, allowing the chieftain to have an audience with Rimuru. Until then, the lizardmen were to refrain from engaging in battle or conflict. Saoi's fellow ninja, suddenly disappeared during this exchange. The chieftain felt a glimmer of hope and quickly gathered all the lizardmen who could fight, informing them about the powerful reinforcements and the impending alliance. Meanwhile, Gabiru had returned, boasting about the 7,000 goblins he had recruited. He insisted on fighting the orc army rather than waiting for reinforcements. Gabiru challenged his father's leadership, claiming him to be too old to make the right decisions. He seized the throne, imprisoned the chieftain and his sister, and took possession of his father's vortex spear trident. Gabiru was overconfident and decided to engage the orcs in battle, using a hit-and-withdraw tactic. The lizardmen fought valiantly, but Gabiru's lack of understanding of the true terror of the Orc Lord became apparent. Rimuru and his companions, including Saoi, Hakiru, Benimaru, Shin, Gobta, and some goblin students, were en route to the marshlands to assist the lizardmen. They remained unaware of the situation involving the imprisoned chieftain and Gabiru's engagement in battle with the orcs. Saoi reported that he was witnessing a battle between a group of lizardmen and high-ranking orcs. Among them was a personal guard to the lizardman chieftain who was struggling against a high-ranking orc. Rimuru immediately ordered Saoi to intervene and assist the lizardmen. Saoi, without hesitation, launched an attack on the orcs, brutally dispatching them. The injured lizardman guard was healed with a healing potion provided by Rimuru, who then introduced himself to the lizardmen. The lizardman guard pleaded with Rimuru to save her father, the chieftain, and her brother Gabiru. She explained the situation, including Gabiru's rebellion, to Rimuru. Shin comforted her, and Rimuru ordered Saoi to free the lizardman chieftain from imprisonment. Meanwhile, the battle between the orcs and lizardmen raged on. The lizardmen were terrorized when they witnessed the orcs devouring one of their own. The orcs' consumption of a lizardman allowed them to move faster and adopt lizardman-like traits. Gabiru ordered a close formation to retreat, but the orcs had already surrounded them. As the orcs closed in, an orc general appeared before Gabiru. His immense aura filled Gabiru with dread as he pondered the power gap between the orc general and the feared orc lord. Gabiru, determined to prove himself, challenged the orc general to a one-on-one battle, which the general accepted. The battle between Gabiru and the orc general began with exchanged blows. The lizardmen chanted Gabiru's name in support. The orc general unleashed a devastating attack named Chaos Eater, which Gabiru narrowly dodged before counterattacking. However, the orc general blocked Gabiru's attack with his shield and landed a powerful blow, throwing Gabiru back toward the lizardmen. Just as the orc general was about to finish off Gabiru, Gobta intervened to stop the attack. Using their shadow movement, Rimuru, Benimaru, Hakiru, and Shin appeared on the scene. Rimuru initiated a barrage of black flames, obliterating multiple orcs. Benimaru, Hakiru, and Shin joined the fray to seek revenge for their fallen comrades. Fear began to grip the orcs as Rimuru continued to rain down destruction upon them. Rimuru, now with wings, watched the battle unfold. Ranga summoned a massive tornado named Deathstorm that instantly killed the orc general. Ranga had evolved into a Tempest Star Wolf with 2 horns, becoming even more powerful. The orcs were overwhelmed by the combined might of the ogres and Rimuru's forces, leading to their swift defeat. Saoi freed the lizardman chieftain from captivity, and Saori swiftly dispatched any remaining threats. Jelmad, observing the battle from his magic globe, grew furious at his defeat and attempted to break the globe when Saoi warned him. Using the orc general, Jelmad realized he needed to take action before his plans crumbled. Rimuru, with determination, located the Orc Lord as the next step in their battle against the orc forces. Jelmad confronted Rimuru and Benimaru's group, cursing them for thwarting his plan to create a new demon lord that would serve him. He explained that he had been sowing seeds, giving out many names, and creating ultimate pawns to achieve his goals. Jelmad then ordered the Orc Lord to attack, and the Orc Lord inquired about evolving into a demon lord. Jelmad revealed his intention for the Orc Lord to become Demon Lord Orc Disaster, a plan devised by Jelmad and his master. Jelmad launched an attack on Gabiru, but Gabiru's subordinates sacrificed themselves to block the attack. Rimuru intervened and provided healing potions to the lizardmen. He then used his sticky threads to immobilize Jelmad and delivered 2 powerful punches. Jelmad, in fear, stammered and asked Rimuru to join him. In response, Rimuru kicked Jelmad hard and inquired about his master. Jelmad ordered the Orc Lord to attack Rimuru, but instead, the Orc Lord beheaded Jelmad in a single blow and devoured his body, absorbing his skills and magical abilities. The Orc Lord then began to evolve into Demon Lord Orc Disaster and introduced himself as Geld, the Demon Lord. Shin rushed to attack Geld, and Hakiru beheaded him, but Geld quickly regenerated and reattached his head. Sawe used arcane thread fetters to bind Geld in threads, Benimaru unleashed black flames, and Ranga attacked with black lightning. Although they inflicted some damage, Geld proved resilient. Geld absorbed another orc, gaining further healing abilities. He launched an attack similar to one used by Gelmud, but Rimuru absorbed it using his powers. Rimuru stepped forward to fight, utilizing Great Sage in auto battle mode. Geld attempted to use Chaos Eater, but Great Sage cut off Geld's arm and began to overpower him. Geld moved swiftly, but Rimuru managed to block his attacks. Geld grabbed Rimuru's hand, but Rimuru retaliated with Flare Circle, which burned Geld. However, Geld was fire resistant. Rimuru took over the battle and asked Great Sage to rest. He figured out how to defeat the orc disaster. Before Geld could devour Rimuru, Rimuru initiated the process of absorbing the orc disaster. The two beings began a battle of consciousness while their physical forms clashed. Rimuru could see the memories of the orc disaster, known as the Orc King, who had suffered through famine, losing his offspring to hunger while under the control of Starved. Geld's tragic past was revealed to Rimuru. The Orc Lord, worried for his brethren, was assured by Rimuru that their sins would be forgiven. Finally, the orc disaster was absorbed, and the goblins began to chant in victory. After the battle, Rimuru informed the Kijin that they were free to go their own way. However, Benimaru requested to pledge their allegiance to Rimuru, wanting to continue serving him until their lives came to an end. After the epic showdown between the orcs and the Alliance, representatives from each race gathered to discuss the aftermath of the battle. In a surprising twist, Rimuru emerged as the chairman of the Jura Forest. Starting with the orcs, Rimuru decided not to press any charges against them, leaving the orcs utterly flabbergasted. With a mischievous glint in his eye, Rimuru explained that the root cause of the battle was hunger and famine, conditions that could have driven any race to the brink. He even cheekily declared that he had taken on the orcs' sins as part of a promise to Demon Lord Geld. The ogres, known for their stern demeanor, surprisingly forgave the orcs. Even after such a massive battle, a whopping 150,000 orcs remained. Rimuru, in his wisdom, decided to welcome them all into the fold. He devised a plan where the lizardmen would share their clean water source and fish, the goblins would provide housing, and Rimuru's village would supply goods to the orcs. In return, the orcs would contribute their labor. This arrangement formed the basis of a newfound alliance among all the races in the Jura Forest, resulting in mutually beneficial relationships. The orcs were deeply moved by Rimuru's generosity and swore their unwavering loyalty to him. Traini, the wise dryad, offered her protection and the bounty of the forest to Rimuru. She officially recognized him as the new chancellor of the great forest of Jura, prompting everyone to bow in reverence. And thus, the Jura Forest Alliance was born. Benimaru, ever the witty one, assured the orc representative that they were all servants of the same master, making them kindred spirits. However, he sternly warned that betrayal of Rimuru would not be forgiven. Rimuru, impressed by Benimaru's words, decided to give the orc representative a name, Geld, and entrusted him with the care of the orc community. This gesture led to Geld's evolution into an orc king. Over the next 10 days, Rimuru bestowed names upon all the remaining orcs. He also named the lizardman chieftain, Abaru, who experienced a significant evolution. Meanwhile, Gabaru, who had previously faced treason charges, was spared from a death sentence. Instead, he was exiled and excommunicated from the village. As Gabaru wandered away, he encountered his loyal subordinates, who chose to follow him into exile. Meanwhile, Demon Lord Clayman stewed over his failure, with Laplace taunting him mercilessly. 3 months after the battle, the High Orcs, under Kaijin's guidance, had developed new skills and become a dependable workforce. What was once a village had evolved into a bustling town with well-constructed roads, buildings, and a sewage system. One day, Sawi reported that several hundred Pegasus-mounted knights were heading toward their village. The formidable King Gazel Dwargo had arrived to meet Rimuru in person. King Gazel landed right before Rimuru, and as Gazel began to threaten him, Kaijin hurried to greet the Dwarf King. Rimuru, never one to back down from a challenge, introduced himself and accepted King Gazel's one-on-one battle challenge. The duel commenced, with Traini also arriving to witness the spectacle. They decided that Rimuru would win if he could block King Gazel's strike. After a series of intense blows, Rimuru managed to dodge the first strike and successfully blocked the second. The winner was declared, and King Gazel couldn't help but be impressed by Rimuru's sword skills. Rimuru humbly attributed his abilities to his master, Hakiru, who was also the mentor of the Dwarf King. Nightfall brought a grand feast, during which Dwarf King Gazel expressed his desire to establish a mutual relationship treaty with Rimuru's burgeoning nation. Rimuru gladly accepted the proposal but realized that he hadn't thought of a name for his nation yet. Suddenly, inspiration struck, and he christened his nation the Jura Tempest Federation, a name that resonated with everyone present. The Goblin Town was officially named Rimuru Capital City, and as Rimuru and the Dwarf King shook hands, a new era of cooperation and friendship was sealed. After the treaty was signed between the Dwargo Kingdom and the Jura Tempest Federation, the nation of monsters gained a powerful and influential ally. Just 2 days later, they received an unexpected gift. Vesta, who was offered by the Dwarf King as a gesture of goodwill. The Dwarf King conveyed to Rimuru that Vesta could be used in any way he saw fit, and even ordered Vesta to immerse himself in studying within the village. Vesta, humbled and remorseful for his past actions, approached Kaijin and Rimuru to request permission to work for their federation. Kaijin, recognizing Vesta's talents, readily accepted and took full responsibility for his guidance. Rimuru, always open to new talent, agreed, and the Dwarf King left, satisfied with the arrangement. In the meantime, Gabiru had also joined the village, and even his sister came to gain valuable experience from their new allies. With the formation of their alliance, Rimuru bestowed names upon Gabiru and his brethren. The lizardmen had evolved into powerful dragonutes, and Rimuru entrusted Soka and other servants to Saui's care while assigning Gabiru and his comrades various tasks. As the lizardmen evolved, some of them began to resemble humans more closely. Rimuru established a laboratory for Vesta in Veldora's cave, where Gabiru and his associates worked as miners. Much had changed in a short span of time. However, a new challenge arose when Lord Milim, a servant of Lord Clayman, expressed her desire to attack Rimuru and the village. Initially, Clayman denied her request due to their non-aggression pact with the Jura Forest. Still, with Veldora's absence, Clayman ultimately agreed to Milim's plan. Lord Milim began preparations for an impending attack. Rimuru suddenly sensed an immense magical presence approaching the village at incredible speed. Lord Milim dramatically landed on a cliff before Rimuru, introducing herself as the one and only Dragonoid, also known as the Destroyer and Demon Lord Milim Nava. She had come to acquaint herself with the strongest entity in the Jura Forest. Lord Milim possessed unique eyes capable of assessing the magicules in anyone. She assured Rimuru that her visit was merely a courtesy call. However, a misunderstanding led to a heated battle as Shin and the others attacked Lord Milim, prompting Ranga to swiftly evacuate Rimuru to safety. Rimuru, with his quick thinking, used a jar of honey to distract Lord Milim. She found it delicious and demanded more, leading to a humorous negotiation where Rimuru proposed that she admit defeat if she wanted more honey. He taunted her playfully, and they eventually called it a draw. Lord Milim vowed not to mess with Rimuru again, and Rimuru rewarded her with a jar of honey. Lord Milim then asked Rimuru about becoming a demon lord, but Rimuru declined, as he found enjoyment in his current form as a slime. Lord Milim explained the allure of being a demon lord, but Rimuru insisted that he was content. They agreed to address each other as Rimuru-san and Lord Milim, respectively. Gabiru, not realizing who Lord Milim was, called her a runt, resulting in a powerful punch that sent him flying miles away. Rimuru revealed Lord Milim's true identity as a demon lord to Gabiru, leaving him in shock. Rimuru introduced Lord Milim to the entire village, marking the first time the villagers had seen a demon lord. They were initially apprehensive but soon embraced the idea of such a powerful ally joining their forces. Rimuru took Lord Milim to a hot spring bath, which she thoroughly enjoyed. Rigord and others cautioned Rimuru about the potential complications of having Lord Milim as an influential ally, as it might not sit well with other demon lords. Rimuru agreed that they should do everything possible to keep Lord Milim happy, given her immense strength. Shin and Shuna, in the meantime, enjoyed playing in the water during the hot spring bath, adding a touch of lightheartedness to their eventful day. Fuse and his minister friend engaged in a discussion about Rimuru, who had played a pivotal role in saving the world from the Orc Lord. They contemplated whether Rimuru should be considered an ally or a potential threat. Fuse ultimately decided to meet with Rimuru, accompanied by Aran and Cavil. Meanwhile, Lord Milim was thoroughly enjoying the food in the town. Vesta was hard at work on a communication globe and various experiments. Rimuru decided to show Vesta his remarkable healing potion, purified from specific plants, boasting an impressive 99% efficiency. In contrast, using dwarven techniques, Vesta could only extract 98% pure healing potion. Rimuru's potion was classified as a high potion, and that mere 1% difference made a significant potency improvement. Vesta eagerly shared his breakthrough with Rimuru, who absorbed and analyzed the potion. It turned out to be equivalent to a full potion that Rimuru could create. Kaijin and Gabiru congratulated Vesta. Rimuru suggested selling the high-level healing potion as a source of income for Tempest. Kaijin, however, believed that such potent potions should be reserved for high-level champions in life and death situations. Vesta added that the healing potions typically sold in the Dwarven Kingdom were of lower potency, created by diluting high potions. Vesta proposed that Rimuru negotiate with King Gazel to produce low potions in Tempest City. Kaijin pointed out that if Tempest produced and sold potions, the Dwarven Kingdom would only need to acquire the necessary ingredients, benefiting both nations. As Rimuru and Kaijin exited the cave, they heard a massive explosion in the city. A warrior from the Beast King's Beastketeer's army had attacked and injured Rigurd. Lord Milim intervened swiftly, knocking the warrior unconscious. Rimuru arrived to heal Rigurd but was confused by Lord Milim's actions. He scolded her for her recklessness, which made her cry. She retaliated by delivering another powerful kick to the unconscious warrior, ready to blow him up entirely before Rimuru intervened. Rimuru began investigating the warrior and his comrades, pressing the warrior for their purpose in Tempest City. The warrior, however, displayed arrogance and disrespect towards Rimuru. Lord Milim silenced him with a menacing gaze, and Rimuru calmed her down. The warrior finally revealed that his lord, Carrion, had ordered them to scout a mysterious Majin to serve him. Rimuru instructed the warrior to leave and convey a message to Carrion. If he wanted to talk, he could choose a date and contact them again. The warrior departed with resentment towards Lord Milim. Rimuru then inquired about Lord Carrion, promising Lord Milim a new weapon in exchange for information. She explained that a few demon lords, including herself, had manipulated Jalmut in a scheme to create a puppet demon lord. The storm unleashed during her attack would grow in strength, potentially engulfing Rimuru's nation and people. One of the neighboring nations was the Kingdom of Falmouth, with barren lands, western provinces, and eastern plains. Tempest served as a major trade power known as the gateway to the western provinces. A rowdy gang led by a man named Yaum roamed the region, drawn together by money. As Yaum and his gang traveled, they heard screams and encountered adventurers facing a giant spider monster. Iran and his friend rushed to assist Yaum. A colossal night spider appeared, which Yaum managed to defeat after some struggle. Yaum expected Fuse to pay him for his involvement. Unexpectedly, Gobta appeared out of nowhere, greeting Cavil. Gobta defeated the spider and claimed it as dinner. His actions left Fuse and Yaum utterly shocked. They began preparing the spider meal while Lord Milim eagerly waited in line for her portion. Fuse and Yaum finally met Rimuru, and Yaum started hurling insults at him. Shin, annoyed by Yaum's behavior, knocked him unconscious with a swift strike from her sheathed sword. Rimuru healed Yaum and expressed his desire for peace. He explained that Tempest had already formed an alliance with the Dwarven Kingdom and aimed to make Tempest more convenient for merchants, a fact confirmed by Vesta. Fuse recognized Vesta and wanted to ensure that Rimuru was an ally to humans. Rimuru asked Yaum to take credit for defeating the Orc Lord so that Rimuru could be known as a trustworthy monster who had assisted the champion in the battle. Yaum contemplated the idea and, after witnessing the town's prosperity, began to trust Rimuru. He expressed his desire to serve under Rimuru and even contemplated faking his own death to avoid returning to his kingdom. Yaum and his comrades decided to undergo training under Hakiru. Demon Lord Clayman, on the other hand, hired another Majin named Tyr to gather information about Rimuru the Slime. Tyr also informed Clayman about another Demon Lord's attempt to revive Charybdis. This news prompted Clayman to instruct Tyr to locate the sea and find out if they could tame Charybdis. Phobio, the warrior who held a grudge against Milim, was determined to seek revenge for the humiliation he had suffered. However, his desire for revenge wasn't realistic given Milim's immense power. His comrades suggested that instead of seeking revenge, they should consider establishing diplomatic relations with Tempest, as they possessed valuable skills and techniques that beastmen lacked. Despite the advice, Phobio's desire for vengeance persisted. Suddenly, a masked Majin named Footman appeared before them, a member of the moderate Harlequin Alliance, also known as Footman the Angry Pirate. Tyr, another powerful individual, also appeared alongside Footman. They explained that they had sensed a wave of hatred and anger, which had prompted them to inquire about Phobio's grievances. Phobio's fellow beastmen wanted to drive the Majins away, but Footman enticed Phobio with the prospect of gaining power, albeit with some associated risks. They proposed that Phobio tame Charybdis, a formidable monster, and become an equal to a demon lord. However, they laid down certain conditions for this partnership. Phobio decided to send his comrades back to their kingdom and resigned from his position to avoid causing any problems for his lord. Meanwhile, Shin, Shuna, and Milim were competing to see who could hold their breath the longest. Fuse, who had initially believed that Rimuru and Tempest were harmless, chose to stay because he found Tempest comfortable and desired an extended break. He had also laid the groundwork for spreading the word that Yaum and his team were the ones who had defeated the Orc Lord, portraying Rimuru and his group as harmless monsters who had merely assisted the champions. Rimuru asked Fuse to help build a road leading to the kingdom of Belmond, as he intended to sell Tempest's produced goods to other kingdoms. Rimuru also requested that Fuse introduce some advisors to him. Phobio and the Magin were outside the cave of Charybdis, which had not yet been revived. They convinced Phobio to enter the cave, break the seal, and take Charybdis into his body, merging with it as one being. Unbeknownst to Phobio, he had fallen into their trap, and Tyr and Footman mocked him for being a fool. This was all part of Clayman's plan. Rimuru and Milim were in conversation when they sensed a strong presence. All of the Kijin joined them, and suddenly, Trainee's younger sister, Trya, appeared. Trya warned them about the approaching calamity and the revival of Charybdis. She provided further information, revealing that Charybdis was Veldora's child, a sky monster with no intelligence that summoned shark-like creatures called megalodons from the spirit world to join its rampage. Charybdis was heading towards Tempest with 13 sharks, and Milim expressed her desire to help. However, Shin and Shuna disagreed with her. Rimuru considered calling King Gazel for backup. After a conference, Rimuru shared his past and the story of Shizu with Fuse. They began formulating plans to confront and battle Charybdis. With an army prepared, Rimuru's forces consisted of orcs, dwarves, dragonclaws, and Kijin. The battle against Charybdis and its accompanying megalodons began. Rimuru managed to take down one of the sharks, but their attacks were proving insufficient to destroy the formidable creatures. This was due to Charybdis' unique skill, magic jamming, which reduced magic efficiency. Geld and his men, with some assistance from Gabiru, successfully took down another shark after a challenging struggle. Pegasus and Gobder riders utilized a tactic where some would divert the attention of the megalodons while others attacked. Hakiru served as the strategist for Rimuru's army. Milim expressed her eagerness to join the battle, but Rimuru refused her offer. Sawe used his strings to manipulate one of the sharks to attack another, while Ranga and Shin, demonstrating incredible abilities, took down 2 more sharks. Charybdis was the last remaining threat, and despite their best efforts, Ranga and Sawe's attacks didn't seem to work. Charybdis began attacking them with its scales, and Sawe and Shin struggled to defend against them. Ranga stepped in as a shield to allow Sawe and Shin to escape. They continued their attacks, but Charybdis displayed a rapid regeneration ability that disappointed Rimuru. It could regenerate all removed scales within 3 minutes. Rimuru decided they had only 3 minutes to deal as much damage as possible before the scales regenerated. The Rimuru ordered the monsters to attack Charybdis and prevent its regeneration. With the support of the Pegasus Knights, their combined strength increased tenfold, yet by sunset, Charybdis had only sustained around 30% damage. In a surprising moment, Charybdis muttered Milim's name and showed signs of life within. Rimuru realized that Charybdis had come to Tempest because of Milim. He called Milim and informed her of Phobio's involvement, urging her to engage in battle without killing him. Phobio attacked Charybdis with its scales, but Milim intercepted the scales and launched a massive attack called Dragon Buster, completely destroying Charybdis' body and ejecting Phobio. Rimuru caught Phobio and began healing him. Charybdis' magic ore was removed from Phobio and consumed by Rimuru. The Great Sage isolated it for appraisal. Phobio apologized to Milim for his grave mistake. Trainee and Trya arrived to investigate Phobio's discovery. Phobio revealed information about Footman and Tyr. Gabiru informed Rimuru about Laplace, the president of the moderate Harlequin Alliance, a jack-of-all-trades group. The pieces of the puzzle started coming together. While Milim had no knowledge of such an alliance, she suspected that Clayman was behind the scheme. Phobio took full responsibility for his actions, and both Milim and Rimuru forgave him. Suddenly, Demon Lord Carrion, Phobio's lord, arrived at the scene. Rimuru saw Carrion for the first time. Carrion punched Phobio into the ground but thanked Rimuru for sparing his life. Rimuru proposed a non-aggression pact with the Jura Tempest Federation, which Carrion agreed to. He then took Phobio, who was bleeding, and left the scene. After the battle, Hakiru was busy preparing a feast for everyone. He was chopping up the dead megalodons to be served for dinner, while the Kijin and Habaru were checking the scales from the megalodons to create new weapons, shields, armor, and accessories that could fetch high prices in trade. The monsters were having a lively celebration, reminiscing about the battle they had just fought. The Jira forest had become more peaceful after the non-aggression pact. Meanwhile, Rimuru was enjoying a relaxing time with Milim and other girls in a hot bath. Milim felt the need to make sure that other demons stayed away from causing trouble in Tempest. After the feast, the goblins were lying around, satisfied and full. Rimuru had a dream about Shizu, in which she told him to move to the royal capital of the kingdom of Ingracia. This dream led Rimuru to make a decision. He announced to everyone that he would be leaving the village for a while and entrusted them with the responsibility of taking care of it in his absence. Rimuru departed from the village with Ranga, embarking on his first journey to the kingdom of humans in the 2 years since his reincarnation as a slime. He was on his way to Freedom Academy, which had been established by one of Shizu's students, Yuuki Kagurazaka. Rimuru had sent an introductory letter through Fuse. 3 days later, Rimuru arrived in the royal capital of Ingracia, using the ID that Fuse had prepared for him without any issues. The city was massive, with modern architecture, and Rimuru entered the Free Union. There, he met the Grand Master and sought to meet with Yuuki. Upon seeing Shizu's mask on Rimuru's face, Yuuki attacked him. Rimuru managed to calm Yuuki down by using words that Yuuki had taught to Shizu. They began to talk about anime, manga, and updates about Tokyo. Yuuki expressed his wish to see those manga with his own eyes, which gave Rimuru an idea. He asked Yuuki for some paper, absorbed it as a slime, and started creating manga for him. Rimuru gave Yuuki a truckload of manga. Rimuru then explained the reason for his journey to the royal capital, and Yuuki initially mistook it for Rimuru planning to return to Japan. Yuuki mentioned the myths of ogres and orcs in Japan and speculated about the possibility of traveling between both worlds under certain conditions. Yuuki arranged for Rimuru to become a school teacher at Freedom Academy, where he would be teaching Shizu's students. Yuuki also asked Rimuru if he knew Hinata Sakaguchi, a student of Shizu. Rimuru remembered Hinata as the one who had left Shizu to walk his own path and had gained strength surpassing Shizu at the age of 15. Yuuki shared this information to help Rimuru understand the difference between the otherworlders like Hinata and those who were spontaneously summoned, like themselves. Yuuki further explained the summoning process, the creation of a body when traveling to this world, and the tragic fate of the 5 other summoned students who had been destroyed. He expressed his desire for Shizu to save those children. As Rimuru entered the classroom to meet his new students, he was immediately attacked by one of them, a student named Ken. Rimuru was introduced to the 5 summoned students, Kenya Misaki, Ryota Sekahachi, Gail Gibson, Alice Rondo, and Chloe Aubert, whom he would be teaching. Rimuru was determined to gain the trust of his students, and he began by taking attendance. However, none of the 5 students responded to him. Rimuru decided to use Ranga to scare the students into cooperating with him. He then attempted to start a lesson, but the students protested, explaining that they hadn't studied anything since arriving in this world. They were aware of their impending fate, and their situation had left them hopeless. Rimuru wanted to give them a glimmer of hope and asked the students to try to defeat him within 10 minutes using their chosen weapons. Ken was the first to step forward, but he struggled to land even a single blow. When the time was up, Ken left in tears. Chloe, who could use water magic, was the next to attack. She trapped Rimuru in water and launched water blades at him, but they had no effect on him. Gale followed, using magic bullets, which Rimuru easily absorbed. Ryota then applied the body enhancement technique Berserker and attempted to attack Rimuru, but he missed every strike. Lastly, Alice used puppets to fight, but the time ran out before she could make any significant progress. Rimuru pondered a way to save these children from their inevitable fate. He showed them Shizu's mask and told them that Shizu had entrusted their well-being to him. This revelation began to earn the students' trust. Rimuru used a warp portal, a technique taught to him by Vesta, to meet with Trainee and discuss the situation of the children and how to potentially save them. Trainee informed Rimuru about the location of the superior spirit's dwelling, known as the Dwelling of Spirits, but she was unaware of the current queen's identity or whereabouts. Rimuru made a promise to Shizu that he would take care of everything. He continued to work as a teacher for a month while also trying to locate a superior spirit but found no success. Rimuru decided to take the students on a picnic and discuss their training. He offered a manga as a reward for the student who performed the best. As he was about to distribute the manga, high-pressure winds started blowing, and the Great Sage informed Rimuru of the aura emitted by a sky dragon heading towards the capital. Rimuru followed the dragon, which was attacking the army with its force shield and lightning. Rimuru absorbed the dragon and flew away, saving the city. Later, Yuuki informed Rimuru about a merchant named M. Jalmire, whom Rimuru had previously saved in his adult Shizu form. Mjolnir invited Rimuru and his students to a dinner. Yuki assured Rimuru that Mjolnir could be trusted, as he had conducted a background check on him. Rimuru and his students enjoyed a grand feast with Mjolnir, during which Mjolnir revealed that he knew Rimuru's true identity. Rimuru asked Mjolnir to visit Tempest City and help them with trade and commerce, to which Mjolnir agreed. As they were about to leave, Rimuru overheard Mjolnir's servant mentioning the name of the Queen of Spirits. He approached the servant and asked if she knew the location of the Dwelling of Spirits, which she did. In exchange for a generous tip, she revealed that the Dwelling of Spirits was located in the Republic of Ulgrasia. Rimuru then began his journey toward the Dwelling of Spirits with his students. Rimuru and the children had reached the entrance of the Dwelling of Spirits, but their path wasn't straightforward. They started hearing laughter in their heads, attempting to scare them off. The labyrinthine path then suddenly lit up, leading them to a dead end. The room transformed into a battlefield, and Rimuru was asked to face a test in the form of a robot. Rimuru instructed Ranga to protect the children while he confronted the robot. The robot was a formidable adversary, made of magisteel and even stronger than the dragon Rimuru had faced in the capital. It launched attacks at Rimuru, causing concern among the children. Rimuru assured them and retaliated with arcane threads and a hell flare attack, which vaporized the robot. Rimuru then threatened to burn the spirit responsible if she didn't reveal herself. A fairy named Ramiris of the Labyrinth appeared before Rimuru, introducing herself as one of the 10 great demon lords. Rimuru playfully teased Ramiris, which irked her. Ramiris explained that she had wanted to have fun and then saved them dramatically to earn Rimuru's respect. She scolded Rimuru for destroying her creation, the colossal robot, which she had built using spirit engineering. Ramiris revealed that the robot was the same project that Vesta's team had failed to complete. She had successfully finished the research and built it herself. Despite her eccentric behavior, Rimuru acknowledged Ramiris's abilities and asked for her assistance. After explaining their predicament, Rimuru asked Ramiris to introduce them to the Queen of Spirits. However, Ramiris disclosed that she was the queen he was looking for. She explained the reason why a demon lord held the title of Queen of Spirits and told Rimuru about Demon Lord Leon, a former hero who had become a demon lord. Ramiris, as the former Queen of Spirits, had many titles, including Guide to the Saints and Fairy of the Labyrinth. She agreed to help Rimuru with his plan to summon a superior spirit. Ramiris led them to the Dwelling of Spirits, where Rimuru would attempt to summon a superior spirit. If he failed, he could use his degenerate skill to create one using the gathered energy. Rimuru and the students were on their way to summon superior spirits. Ramiris led them to a location where they could call forth the spirits by using any word or phrase, such as help or let's play. Gale was the first to attempt the summoning. He began praying, but instead of superior spirits, inferior spirits appeared. Rimuru used his gluttony ability to absorb the tiny spirits and created a superior spirit with the earth attribute. He then transferred this spirit to Gale. Alice was next, and she received a superior spirit with the space attribute. Ken summoned a superior light spirit, and Rimuru transferred the spirit to him. Chloe began her summoning, and a superior spirit appeared. However, this spirit was different and seemed to possess incredible power. It kissed Rimuru and vanished into Chloe. Ramiris explained that the entity resembled a spirit and had come from the future. By inhabiting Chloe, the spirit had laid the foundation for its own rebirth. The students were saved, and they expressed their gratitude to Ramiris. Many other spirits appeared, and the students celebrated their newfound abilities. As promised, Rimuru gave Ramiris a new robot possessed by a demon. Yuki was curious about how Rimuru had created the superior spirits, but was silenced when Rimuru gave him a bunch of new manga. Rimuru reminisced about his journey over the past 2 years, making new friends, battling formidable foes, building alliances with powerful nations, befriending a demon lord, saving the students, and even inhabiting an entire town. Another demon lord observed Rimuru's activities through a magic globe. Rimuru resigned from his position as a teacher, and the students were emotional about his departure. Chloe didn't want him to leave, and Rimuru gave them coats crafted by Shuna as parting gifts. He also gave Chloe Shizu's mask, although he couldn't explain why he chose to give it to her. As Rimuru and Ranga continued their journey back to Tempest City, they were unaware that a mysterious warrior in a white coat was eavesdropping on their conversation from behind a tree. Rimuru looked forward to returning home. In the kingdom of Filtwood, a lady who had lost her husband sought to summon a demon to avenge his death. She was willing to offer anything in exchange for justice and to make the one who killed her husband pay for their actions. This kingdom bordered the forest of Jura, and Shizu received an urgent request to visit the kingdom and deal with a resurrected demon threat. Upon her arrival, Shizu encountered a group of heroes, some of whom were well known, while others were less familiar. The kingdom's minister explained the situation to them, detailing that the demon had been sealed away by a champion named Orthos centuries ago. 2 renowned heroes had already perished in attempts to confront the demon. The demon sought to reclaim its body, which was in the possession of the kingdom, to complete its resurrection. Shizu speculated that the demon might be a superior demon, possibly even an archdemon. She questioned the minister about the demon's name, but there were no records of it having one. This lack of a name puzzled Shizu, as it seemed unusual for a demon of such power to be nameless, especially if it had defeated a renowned hero like Silver Wings. The situation grew tense when a man attempted to leave the hall and was swiftly killed by the minister's general, who burned him to death. To everyone's shock, the deceased man turned out to be a lesser demon. The situation escalated, with paranoia and distrust spreading among those present. The demon responsible for stirring up trouble presented itself as an adventurer named Kuro. Shizu confronted him, urging him to introduce himself. Kuro attacked Shizu with flames, but her mask, which possessed the ability of infinite time compression, shielded her from harm. Shizu retaliated with an attack of her own, using inferno flames. Kuro eventually revealed his true form and engaged Shizu in a fierce battle. Despite Kuro's formidable abilities, Shizu ultimately prevailed. He retreated after realizing that Shizu had access to such a powerful item. The following day, Shizu remained contemplative about the demon and the events of the previous day. Lord Leon informed her about demons known as progenitors, but Shizu considered it unlikely that Kuro was one of them. Shizu was summoned by the minister's guard to meet with the minister himself. During their conversation, Shizu grew suspicious as she realized that the guard had not been present during the previous day's events yet spoke knowledgeably about her fighting style. The guard led her to a basement chamber with 3 thrones, 2 of which were occupied. To her surprise, the guard revealed himself to be the king, who was none other than the champion Orthos. Orthos admitted that he had never sealed the demon and had used it as bait to lure adventurers to their doom. Orthos praised Shizu's mask and expressed his intent to devour her. He effortlessly overpowered her in their confrontation. However, the demon who had previously fought Shizu intervened. Decapitating Orthos and 2 of the kingdom's ministers. Orthos had underestimated this demon, known as Black Noir, a progenitor renowned for taking revenge. Black Noir had been summoned to avenge Silver Wings, the lady and her husband who were once celebrated heroes. Orthos was the one who had killed Silver Wings. Now, Black Noir sought the mask, and the kingdom believed Shizu had defeated the demon, leading to a case of mistaken identity in the records of the kingdom's events. That concludes the recap for now. If you'd like me to do the next season, make sure to push that subscribe button and let me know your thoughts. I'm out.